I don't think there's a lot of matchups that favor the Bucs, but there is one in particular that I'm like, yeah, this favors the Buccaneers for sure. What are your thoughts on this side of things?
Well, and I think we're probably going towards the same place. So I don't want to tip it off right away. I'll give one other interesting one before I get to
Okay.
that. Is I think this tackle duo, and we talked about it before. They're going to do a better job than Jacksonville did, right? I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to completely hold back Bosa and Chase Young and Randy Gregory and dealing with all of that. But I mean, Tristan Wirfs is a baller. He's a legit dude. He's about to get paid a lot of money. So I think that's one of the better matchups when you take into consideration all the matchups that the Bucs are going to be having to deal with. And then Antoine Winfield, maybe not a matchup, but I mean we touched on him earlier. Dude is playing like an all-pro, right? I want to read off some stats just to give people perspective, since not many are watching the Buccaneers right now. But Winfield on the year, 18 targets, 4 PBUs, a pick, 0 touchdowns allowed, 3 fumbles forced. And he's third among all DBs in passer rating allowed, like 35 passer rating. So it's not just like, oh, he's a really good football player. He's playing really good. No, he is playing like the best safety in the NFL right now. He is wreaking havoc in some of these games. And, he's the reason that the Buccaneers have been able to hang in some of these games, because I mean, obviously last week against the Titans was a 2-score game, but I want to say in the three out of the 4 losses prior, it was all 1-score games, right? Against Houston, Buffalo, and Atlanta, all 1-score opportunities. And Antoine Winfield is the reason they were in every single one of those games. So I think I look to see him having one of those moments where he either picks off Purdy or maybe he gets Debo on a fumble coming across the middle. Something like that, to where he's going to have a splash play. He's going to have an impact play. And I know 49ers fans can be a little antsy. So someone's going to have a fumble. Purdy might have a pick. It's going to happen. This is not just exclusive to the 49ers Bucs game. Antoine Winfield has been doing this all year, but I don't want to skirt around it anymore. Jesse. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are going to beat versus this 49ers secondary. Yes. It's going to be ugly, and this might sound a little this might sound a little crazy, but let me fully explain it. I think it'd actually be better for the 49ers to keep Isaiah Oliver in the slot, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's because Chris Godwin is not playing in the slot at the same rate that he has been his entire career. Throughout his first 4, 5, 6 years of his career, played 2/3 of his slots or snaps in the slot, right? He's a pretty slot exclusive guy. This year, he's playing 1/3 of his time in the slot, right? So they're going to keep Mike Evans and Godwin outside. They're going to be the X and the Z of this offense, right? So I think if you're kicking in Diamador Lenore and you're keeping Ambry Thomas out there, I actually think that's more in the Buccaneers' advantage than it is the 49ers. So I would, if I were Steve Wilkes, only for this game specifically, I would kick Oliver inside, and they'll have some snaps that they'll lose because they have some Bucs have some young guys they're playing in the slot right now. Trey Palmer has been that guy. We mentioned him earlier. Devin Tompkins is their punt returner, a speedy guy. So 2 fast young guys who will get their own. But if you're the 49ers, I'd rather be dealing with that than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin getting targets against Ambry Thomas and Travarius Ward, right? And I don't even think Mooney Ward has been so bad, but him against Mike Evans is not a matchup that favors him. I think Mike Evans is going to get a lot of DPI calls. I think they're going to attack downfield a lot. They're going to attack the sideline a lot. They've done a really good job of that this year. So, yeah, I mean, look, that was the obvious matchup that stood out to me. I think especially the Oliver thing is interesting because I know 49ers fans have been so kind of crazy about that specific matchup and how he's been doing this year. But I actually do think it would benefit the 49ers to keep him on the field and keep Lenore outside.
100% agree with you. And what we saw last week, I think, was a product of Wilkes understanding that Christian Kirk was going to work from the slot most of the game. And being the case, he wanted Lenore in there. I think it was a great adjustment on his part. But I think this is going to be a week-to-week thing depending on what the matchups are. I look at teams like Philly, where they have 2 great outside receivers. I don't expect Lenore to be kicked inside there. Luckily, Lenore has the versatility to play in or out. And I think this is one of those weeks where Wilkes is going to be smart enough to realize, hey, we don't want Ambry Thomas on an island against either one of those guys. That would be a mistake for the ages. So if we see it, I expect that the Buccaneers will take their chances, and they're going to take their chances either way. That's what this offense does. They're they're like a boom or bust offense. They were that way with Tom Brady at times. They've been that way with Baker Mayfield. And Baker, what you want to say about him is pretty accurate outside the numbers going deep. I mean, that's one thing that he has done well, at least from what I've seen from him. I don't know what the statistics say, but I got to imagine throwing to guys like Evans makes your job a hell of a lot easier. And that's what Mike Evans does. He gets those one-on-one matchups. He stays tight to the sideline, and he just outjumps you or outruns you, maybe both, and it's a problem. So
yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a problem if Ambry Thomas sees any time on the field. And I will say, maybe against more experienced offensive coordinators, it would be even more of a problem. But Dave Canales, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, is a first-time play caller. And I remember he was at the podium last week when we were talking to him, and we were asking him about Mike Vrabel. What was it up, like going up against that sort of defense? And he made kind of this funny comment. He's like, in every single game, I'm outmatched in terms of experience, and it shows. And I think what Canales has done some good things for the Buccaneers. He's certainly modernized their offense in some ways, but I think where he's kind of fallen a little bit short is they don't necessarily take advantage of mismatches where, hey, you have a corner who's bad, we're going to just pepper him over and over and over. Whereas, especially being a 49ers fan, we see this with Kyle so much. If something is working for the 49ers offense, they're going to press that button over and over and over. So I do think if Ambry Thomas plays and he's outside, it's not the end of the world for the 49ers, because I'm not sure Canales, he just hasn't proven yet that he's one of those guys that knows what matchups to go.
It's wherever Mike Evans is at, that's where they're going to go. So because Baker, I mean, that's his safety blanket, really. He doesn't have the elite tight end. Yeah, they can mix in the screen game, but they're not a great running team. But if Mike Evans is there, they're going to take their chances. I mean, that's just the way that it works.
Yeah, no, and that's the matchup that's going to favor them more than any on offense. They're going to have to, and I don't think it's going to be, you'll see shot plays in there, but it is going to be a lot of short outs, intermediate routes towards the sideline, curls, comebacks, those sort of things, right? So I think Evans is going to get his own against this team. I think Godwin will too. But I'm really interested to see how Steve Wilks approaches the Oliver thing, because Godwin is he's not that slot guy anymore that people think of him, like he was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not his role in this offense. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of how Steve Wilks approaches that.
Absolutely. Shady Luke, who's an Eagles fan, says Baker's legs are going to be huge. Bucs got to get pressure all game and protect your edges, defensive ends and corners. Play press, let Winfield clean up on the back end, and pray. Gotta match the physicality. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to take a lot for the Bucs to win. I think there is a small path, any given Sunday, right? And I don't think the Bucs are a team where you're just going to confidently come in and steamroll them, but you should be confident that the 49ers are going to win at the same time. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly see. I think that's a good point about Baker's legs. They use him to kind of move that launch point, play action. And like I was talking about with Dave Canales, he's still learning this offense, and they're getting better over time. But I still think they kind of play a little bit too much into kind of the downfall of what you saw with some of those Seattle teams over the last 5 years, where they run the ball up the middle too much. They're not good at it. They're going to kind of do some of those traditional offensive things that aren't as efficient anymore as they were 5 years ago. So you see some aspects of that, but then you'll see drives where, hey, we're going to pepper Rachaad White 8 times in 3 different ways, running the ball, getting him in the screen game, running outside. So I think for the Buccaneers, this is a good litmus test in terms of, hey, you're very familiar with the 49ers defense, Dave Canales. And, against D'Amico, this offense put up some points, right? So he's proven that, even though it's Steve Wilks, with all the personnel that the 49ers have, this is going to be the defense that he is the most familiar with in terms of all-season game planning for. So I do think the Buccaneers will give the 49ers more of a run for their money than fans are expecting, but I think it'll be that sort of thing where the 49ers get out to a lead early, the Buccaneers kind of claw back and make it a closer game than it needs to be, and then the 49ers kind of just run the ball out for the rest of the game.
Yeah, most certainly. GTC Real says, come on, Ben, you know got dang well that the linebackers can't cover Kittle. Only one that can stop Kittle is Kyle Shanahan. We do know that Kyle Shanahan certainly can stop Kittle for sure.
Oh, man.
Brother Bob says, Ben, you're better than Sheets too. Let me see. Oh, he's got more. Here we go. Ben plus an 8th round pick for PP Sheets and Boombox guy. Oh my gosh. He's trying to trade the whole house over here. I love it.